Oh my god, they're a prismatic leyline enjoyer. Quick, get a camera. We found one in the wild. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to more Flush and Bad. And today I wanted to kind of briefly cover the Calling Memphis meta breakdown and then just kind of talk about some of the top heroes here. So Zen and Viserai are kind of at the top of the litter, which is not a huge surprise. I think they're both kind of like the two almost S tier decks. Like I think that they are probably like the most dominant decks at this point. Zen obviously having a very good Viserai matchup, and Viserai just having like a lot of high roll potential. I think that these two decks kind of like can contend with each other. Like I don't think it's necessarily free. It feels almost like kind of coin flippy depending on like who goes first, that kind of thing. But yeah, these two are kind of unexpected. New being at third is kind of interesting. From what I understand, I thought that Viserai was supposed to just like walk all over New, which is kind of it's my expectation that that happens, but maybe the news have kind of like figured something new out or something else. Ira also high representation. This is not super surprising. She's got a lot of good damage potential. She's got a good new matchup. Her Zen and Viserai matchups are like, I think her Zen's like 50-50, maybe it like close to 50-50. I think it's still a little bit Zen favored, but her Viserai matchup seems like quite bad. And then let's talk about like this kind of like second row as well. So we got Enigma, Aurora, Arachne, Vincent, Cindra, and Kano. So Kano's Zen matchup very, very good. Cindra's Zen matchup is like pretty terrible, but her Viserai matchup I think might be good. That's kind of like TBD on that. Vincent, obviously, some people are still just huffing that Vincent copium. Makes a lot of sense. She got a new card, so kind of expected to kind of see her around here. And then we have Arachne, Aurora, and Enigma. Enigma representation kind of makes sense to me. She's got a lot of new tools with like the quick dodge flexors and like the extra D reacts. And Aurora kind of didn't really get any new tools, but she's just a very high representation aggro deck. Like I think people will just play Aurora regardless of like what the best aggro deck is. So we still see a decent amount of Aurora, and for what it's worth, I think that Auroras actually have like a pretty decent plan into Zen now. To the point where I think it's like pretty close to 50-50, or if not like maybe like a little bit Aurora favored. I think it's like pretty close. I think that you can kind of high roll in either direction, which maybe doesn't feel great from the Zen side. And then we got some Arachnes. I've not struggled a ton into the Arachne matchup. Maybe I'm just like I have a very good package for it, but again, I've not struggled like too much into Arachnes. I think that it's not actually that bad of a matchup, and yeah, I'm pretty comfortable against Arachne right now. Let's take a look at some other interesting heroes. So Prism sitting at 11. That also kind of makes sense, just because she's got like pretty good Zen matchup, and then her new matchup and like what else is good? Like her new and Enigma matchup might be like okay, but like she kind of suffers, I think, into like Ira and Viserai. Uh, I wanted to make a quick note about Dio. I think Dios actually have a really good plan for Zen now, to the point where they're basically running like 3 null time zones. So that makes that matchup like significantly scarier, especially on the Zen side. And we saw that there's actually a Dio that did very, very well in the calling, running like triple null time zone. So I think that Zens might need to adjust to this, but I think it's like pretty easy to adjust to Dio. Next up, we have got Phi. Phi, actually, I think he's got a lot lower representation than I maybe would have expected. I kind of expected like the Cindra and Phi to be swapped, but that's kind of surprising to me. Also got a decent amount of Jarl. I think Jarl's kind of on the uptick, especially with like kind of the top. I think he's still like held back by kind of New, but he does have like a pretty decent like Ira and Zed matchup, but struggles maybe into like Viserai and Enigma. I think those are kind of like the main heroes I want to talk about. Fang sitting here at F tier, like we kind of expected. I don't know actually if like the Fangs are going to convert. They might convert just on the basis that like it's a new deck and people don't know how to play around it. But like Fang doesn't have like stuff to play, or like he's not a disruption deck, so you're basically just playing around numbers, right? So yeah, this meta field kind of like falls in line with like a lot of the tier lists I've seen. I think Nathan Crawford probably had like the best tier list that I was looking at, but yeah. Anyways, this is like pretty much what I expected from the meta. All right, I did also actually want to interject to see kind of like the conversion rate. So we saw a lot of Viserys convert in the Memphis calling, which is kind of interesting to me. We saw like actually very little Zens convert. I think there were like 31 Zens, so it's like a 16 or something percent conversion rate, or like 20%, something like that. But very, very low. I think it's like sub 20%, right? Low, very low Zen conversion rate, which kind of makes sense. I think Zen is kind of suffering a little bit from kind of like the blue turtle shell problem. Like I feel like Viserai should be suffering from that, but I feel like Zen is kind of like eating a lot of like the tech and the hate right now, which kind of makes sense, like with like null time zone and like amnesia and like weakest link. I think there's a lot more targeted hate towards Zen than there is for Viz. And Viz is just like a very, very strong deck, especially against a lot of like the top decks. Let's take a look at other decks. Kano also having a very high conversion rate, which kind of makes sense given like the top field. Like I think Kano actually has a very good matchup into Viz and Zen, especially since Zens are cutting down on AB. And then we also have a lot of Enigmas converting, a lot of Cindras converting. That kind of makes sense to me. So a couple Mario's, a couple news that also makes sense. Yeah, but this is like kind of in line with what I expect. I think the Zen conversion is like a little bit low. But I think that there's like a rationale for this, and that people think that Zen is like the best deck, and then like by people thinking that Zen is the best deck, he's basically like knocked down a peg because of the problem where like people just bring in a ton of targeted hate. I feel like Viserai should be eating a lot more of that targeted hate, in my opinion. Like people should be trying to tech for Viserai, especially after seeing like this data. Yeah, but like a lot of kind of surprising things here. One Dash IO is also a little bit surprising. I think that Dash IO is like pretty solid, but maybe also just loses to Viz as well. Yeah, but this is kind of an interesting spread here, so definitely something to keep an eye on. I think Viserai is like the top dog right now, and I think Zens are pretty much trying to beat Viserai if you're bringing Zens. So definitely kind of a cool data to look at. All right, so with the meta out of the way, let's kind of talk about the deck list. So I've been kind of working on some changes to the deck list, and I wanted to kind of talk about them briefly. I've also kind of like introduced like these kind of like B tier heroes because I think that the meta is kind of like wide open at this point. So I do want to kind of have a plan for at least a little bit of everyone. But yeah, let's talk about the cards. So I've cut the red Harmony Hunts just because I think that Tiger Eye Reflex fills a similar slot, and I think we're kind of heading into a little bit more of a disruption heavy meta. I've seen a lot of cards that I like. I've seen a lot of like Zen hate, specifically recently. I've seen like Amnesia, I've seen Weakest Link, and Tiger's Eye kind of feels like a compromise into some of that disruption, like just being able to block like a sensor or like a disruption effect. I think this card is like very, very powerful and kind of has similar stats to Harmony Hunt, especially when opponents I think are like pretty aggressive now, just like trying to send as much damage as possible. I think this card is like very, very solid. Next, I wanted to talk about sensor. So I've cut this. I've gone back and forth. I think a couple times between this and Erase Face. I like Erase Face a lot, especially into like Mech and into like the Draconic heroes and like occasionally, but or Enigma I think is probably the biggest one. Just being a popper, but I've never had like the Erase Faces really necessarily line up into Enigma, so that's kind of why I've cut this card, and maybe I'm just kind of trying to go for like a more aggro package into Enigma. That's at least the thought process with the sensor, is that like maybe I don't actually need Erase Faces to win that matchup. I've also gone, I think, up on a like one flick over something. I forget exactly what I cut that for. Maybe it was like a that all I got. Just to have like an extra 4 block react, I think is quite strong. Flick Flack also I think helps a little bit. It's like Dio and New. Just having an extra react, especially when you're like fat decking, makes the matchup a lot easier. And I don't really like snag for that reason, because I think that like having an extra 4 block is very good into some matchups if you're trying to go for like more of a defensive plan. And then what else do we have on the board? I'm still keeping the Warmongers on the board. I think that people think that Warmongers is kind of on the decline. Uh, I think that this is a very good tool for keeping decks honest. So I think 3 is maybe a little bit excessive, but like having 2, like I feel like this card occasionally just like wins me the game against like some decks that I've been playing against. Like occasionally wins me the game into Viserai, occasionally wins me the game into Dio. Again, Dio's not maybe like the highest representation hero right now. But I think that this card is like worth including in your like sideboard package, just because I think that the effect's quite strong, and I think that Viserais are maybe trying to get a little bit too greedy. So I don't know. I kind of like this just for hedging. Yeah, I think that's the main cards. Again, up on Tiger Eyes. I think I've also maybe cut like down on a Growl, just because like I think Enigma is like a little bit less real, but like she's still very real. So we do have I think a plan into her. We kind of look at. Let me pull up the Enigma matchup. Yeah, so into Enigma, I think we're running like 31. I think I have to leave in like 1 Tiger Eye just on the basis of like how I'm boarding. But this plan seems like pretty solid. I might like go up on a Tiger Eye, like down on a sensor or something, but I think that running like at least like 1 or 2 Tiger Eyes is probably like acceptable, especially on 30 blues. So this is kind of my like current thought process into a lot of like the matchups in the meta. But yeah, we're gonna continue to kind of iterate on this list. If you have any ideas, like feel free to like float them to me and let me know, because I've thought a lot about like what the current meta is, and I've tried to kind of like curtail this deck around this. But there's definitely like a possibility of like overfitting. So overfitting meaning that like maybe I'm trying to adjust too much to the meta. Maybe I'm cutting like some cards that are just like overperformers, like Harmony Hunt. Yeah, but if you have any ideas, feel free to float them to me in the comments. Again, I'm not the best deck builder in the world, but I do feel like I have a pretty good grasp on Zen. So, I want to give this deck a shot today. I've kind of gone back and forth on a lot of cards, so we'll give this kind of configuration a try. I've actually been doing like pretty well with it though. If we kind of look at stats real quick, yeah. So I've been playing a little bit of Talishar today. I played a couple games, and my main losses have been to I think we look at today, it's been Cindra, New, and Jarl, which I think those are matchups you can definitely lose. I've also won a lot of games against Cindra, so I think that maybe just is like variance and stuff. But yeah, I've been feeling like pretty comfortable in this configuration, especially into I think what are harder matchups like Dio and like Jarl and like Aurora. I think that those matchups are definitely difficult. Like I think I was testing with one of our friends, Spencer. He got me on Aurora pretty good, but otherwise, I think that like this configuration is actually like very solid. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get to some games. Probably enough talking for today, but yeah, if you have any suggestions, let me know. And yeah, see you in the games. All right, so we got a Cindra. Let me look at my Cindra board. I think we're still on like the wax on wax off plan into Cindra. It can definitely be a little bit awkward sometimes, but I think often it's pretty good just because you can like set up a Zen state for 2 turns, which denies a lot of dagger value, and like oftentimes they'll just start with like a 0 cost or like a 1 cost anyways, like a Spreading Flames. Give them a good luck, or they'll give us a good luck, have fun, but yeah, that's fine. Let's go ahead and start with the Harmony Hunt. Guess we're gonna do Harmony Hunt into Tiger, Key Unleashed, Arsenal Sync. I think I do like the Syncs in this matchup just because they are running a lot of like 0 for 4s. Specifically like Snatch as well. So it can help a lot against like stuff like that. All right, let's go ahead and finish up the Key Unleash. Just get max filtering here and then Arsenal Sync. I think you generally, I don't know if you want to go first or second in this matchup. It feels like either way you end up leaking a bit of damage on either side. All right, opponent's blocking with 2 head jabs. Pretty all right. All right, nice. We've got Transcend. We can use Wax Off to do it. I don't really want to use Wax Off ideally. I like ideally want to like maybe try to use that for to combo with like Wax On. We do have 4 Wax on this in the deck, so it's like pretty likely to find it at some point. All right, how do we want to do this? I think eventually we want to use the Sync Bullet to cover something, but I don't think there's a real reason to do it now. They can banish something. It has to be with cost less than, so it has to be a 0 cost basically, so that this doesn't actually do any reduction or anything. So no reason to block there. All right, Hot in the Heels does have a relevant on hit though. So I think we'll go ahead and try to use this sync maybe to get rid of the sensor. I guess we can see what they do. If they draw into like a snatch or something, it definitely feels a little bit awkward, but I want to try to like filter this hand and see if we get another blue that we can use here. All right, they're going to go for the flick here. That's okay. Curious to see if they gain a resource here. All right, no resource, sure. All right, into a Blaze Headlong. So we have a couple choices here. I feel like the correct choice is to just like block. Maybe we don't even block with like we probably should block with Pouncing Paws after we see what their card. I think we just let them have the card here. It's definitely like they're getting free value, which is pretty bad, but like we're able to send like a Chase Aspect next turn, which is really good, and then we can just Arsenal stir the pot to do our first Transcend. So I feel like we're supposed to just let this hit. I'm curious if maybe the better opportunity to sync was on like this chain link as opposed to the Hot in the Heels, but I guess that does give them a mark in a field to you. All right, we got the Ravenous Rabble. This is kind of looking like Brody's Spurlock list a little bit. All right, we have Blaze Headlong on top. That's pretty good for them. All right, hopefully no Snatch or anything here. Hopefully just Rebuy Daggers, Arsenal Pass would be like ideal scenario. All right, so we do have the option, I guess, between Arsenal Stir the Pot and Wax Off. I still feel like Stir the Pot is like a stronger, especially if we're trying to go for like a race or maybe like a Zen State against them, which are both pretty good. So let's go ahead and just send Chase Aspect. I think it's probably better than Arsenaling the Wax Off here. Pretty good damage though. So I think against like especially a lot of these like zero cost kind of like streamlined Ira builds, like these more redline builds, I think that maybe blocking on the third chain link is like slightly better. It definitely feels like a lot of the time they just get like guaranteed mask momentum value, but there is kind of like a little bit of cost to it in that their entire deck has to be kind of like head jabs. All right, they have a loyalty from Beyond the Grave. I think that's okay for me. I'm kind of fine just taking off cards here. We get this nice little Stir the Pot in Arsenal. We're kind of basically on the same page as damage. Yeah, things are looking pretty good here. This is definitely, I feel like, a little bit more of a racing matchup. Like, you don't want to be, like, too defensive. All right, they have Wax On as well. That's okay. I'm curious to see if they're on Wax Off, too. All right. Unfortunately, we did draw the Wax On with the Stir here. So if we did go for it, we probably would have been rewarded for doing so. So notably, we've not transcended, so our Traverse is not live, so I do need to remember that. But I think we'll just let this Ignite go through, and then maybe try to wax on whatever zero cost they play afterwards. I'm assuming it's a zero cost. All right, it is a brand. So there's no reason to block this brand. We should just wax on whatever their next thing is. All right, and it's the Blaze Headlong, which we knew about from the reveal off the Rabble last turn. All right, so we just got another Chase Aspect here, which I think is quite solid. All right, so they're going to go ahead and just flick a knife to get that free value. The one thing I will say about this specific version of Cindra, like the more redline version, like if you look at pretty much all their cards, they've been red so far, is that they don't really use their daggers to attack you, which is kind of interesting. It's more so you just play a bunch of like head jab. You're kind of like a Fi almost, basically. It's definitely an interesting deck. All right, let's go ahead and go for the levels though. Do Chase Aspect again, and then get set up pretty nice here. And then we get a random card in Arsenal. Sensor is interesting. I feel like we probably don't want to play this turn just so we can get our free Kakara value. And having an Arsenal is like probably fine, especially with Traverse up. So with these redline versions of Cindra, I'm actually kind of curious how they do against Jarl, because it seems like this deck just like almost auto loses to Jarl if you're like on like no blues, right? But maybe that's like a sideboarding thing. Maybe they have like some blues in the sideboard that I'm not familiar with. All right, we get them down to 14. And then we still have our full equipment suite. We still have a sensor in Arsenal. We have Chi in the deck. Everything's going great. Just naturally draw the Chase Aspect again. Absolutely disgusting. So Run and Renegade, they have 4 cards in hand. They're probably going to be geared up to get another mass draw here. I guess we'll try to make it as like annoying as possible by like maybe blocking with like Traverse in this. Definitely a little bit awkward here though. But I'm pretty sure we can just out damage them even like regardless of what they have here. I've also been seeing a lot of what do you call it? I've been seeing a lot of links instead of mask momentum. So kind of an interesting choice from our opponent here. Do we give them the free dagger? It feels bad, but like they don't really have a way to use the daggers most of the time anyways, especially if they're like low on blues like most of these lists are. Alright, so I'm kind of glad I didn't block here. Again, I'm pretty sure we just win the damage race. All right, they could potentially get a blood splattered here. Okay, they choose to. Sure. May you sneak in a free kunai, or may have a 1 cost or something. All right, so interesting thing about the way that they attacked here is that I can actually deny the mask trigger here if I just block with the traverse, because they can't flick a knife on the chain link. Although they could, if they're smart, see that they can like activate Cindra and then flick the knife. It's kind of spicy, but I think I'm still going to try to go for traverse here. I think at least trying to make it their mass trigger awkward is probably better than nothing. If they don't go for it, then I'm very happy with this, right? Because we effectively just reset that mass thing. All right, so they might dragon scale this, but I don't really care. They can flick the other dagger. They won't draw a card. All right, they do potentially get go again, but they still won't draw the card there. But they shouldn't draw the card there. All right, so they hit 8 breaking points. It's pretty good. The question, I guess, is do we want to block this? How many aspects, I guess? So the problem with this is that we only have, these are the last 2 chase aspects in our deck. So if we block with them, it's a little bit awkward. Could also block with like Pouncing Key plus Kasaya and then just send the damage. And then we still have like a Sensor in arsenal for next turn. They shouldn't be drawing a card here, right? Could also just lose this. That is an option. Is it better to lose this or is it better to block this? I think it might be slightly better to block this. We do obviously lose on Kasaya, which is a little bit risky, but I think it's a little bit safer. All right, they get the daggers back, which is expected. But we at least deny the CNC effect, which I think is good. All right, so we don't unfortunately get to do levels here, but I think the turn is still pretty good. I guess we can also just end on Sensor, which is pretty sweet. Or no, we can't really, unless we want to get a 1-cost here. Though we lose out on Kakara value. It's kind of interesting. I guess, is the Kakara value better? Maybe it's not. Maybe we should just go for 1-cost here. Just send as much damage as possible. So if we try to send as much damage as possible, the Breed Anger is the best choice. So you get 1-cost, 1-cost, 1-cost. If we can just put Cindra on low cards, their masculine momentum matters like a lot less. I think this is generally about a 4 to 5 turn game against Cindra. It seems about generally when it ends for me. Like, it just feels very much like a race matchup. Kind of similar to Aurora, but I think it's like a little bit faster. Like, I feel like one player basically either like high rolls the other one or the other way around. So we're threatening 4, then 4, then 5. So they're forced to block on the Breed Anger or the Crouching Tiger here. I want to see if they're running Wax Off. Remind me to do that after this game. I guess I'm talking to myself. All right, we see an Oath of Loyalty and the Blood Splatter Vest. They did kind of maximize their the Blood Splatter value here, which is pretty good for them. We'll send the Tiger here. I don't think it really matters, but go ahead and just finish on a Sensor. Might block with like a 3-block plus Mask or something. And they have a 2-card hand, which is not crazy. All right, we see 2 blocks here. I want to actually make a note of this card. So I think I saw on stream that a certain someone was using this as a Draconic Chain Link. But this is also a ninja action, so interesting to kind of take note of, especially if you're playing Cindra, that this is not Draconic. To be fair, though, these borders are like near identical, so I understand the kind of like the confusion around that, but definitely something to be a little bit careful of. All right, we have an okay turn here. It's definitely a little bit awkward. So I think we just got to do like Kakara into Mauling Key. Feels pretty bad. Is there another option? I don't know if there was. I guess we still strip basically We strip at least one card out of hand, which is maybe not enough. But we are at like a pretty good life total, and we've got their mask out of the way, so they're not going to be drawing extra cards. It should just be vanilla damage coming in. Like maybe we are able, like if they have a bunch of 2 blocks, maybe we get rid of like their mask here or something. Yeah, definitely a little bit of a brick from us. I think that's slight weakness of Tiger Eye Reflex is that if you're kind of put into like a situation where your opponent blocks out, the card gets significantly worse. Right, do you like to see the lava versus block? Looks like they're going to hold on to Flick and then their 4-card hands. Oh, they're going to Wax on too. Okay, I'm very fine with this. Kind of curious why they didn't just go for the whack. Maybe they couldn't lava burst. Maybe that was the issue. Okay, but I think we got a little bit fortunate there. Right, this hand's a little bit awkward. But maybe we can get him with Passover, which is kind of funny. I guess... Is there a reason to block this now? I guess we'll play around breaking. Can they even breaking point? They can breaking point if they do like kunai kunai that, but they have to have a blue and then breaking point, and this deck has been entirely reds up until this point. I think I can probably safely just block here. I mean, I don't know what disruption maybe they have like a snatch or something, but I don't think the game is gonna go long enough for snatch to matter. Maybe is my logic. All right, Art of Dragon Blood. We can deal with that. So that's a-okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. All right, just gonna keep the daggers. We've used all of our Chase the Tails notably, which is maybe a little bit awkward. But we do have a pretty decent hand here. I guess we'll go ahead and just pitch the Passover. We don't really need to like banish the needle to like win this game, I think. We'll go for the grain here just to make it awkward. So opponent might be faced with a little bit of a rough choice here. We can also like separate these tigers to be really annoying if they don't go for a react on this. All right, they do have the wax on. Pretty solid. I'm still curious if they're running the wax offs. I feel like that's my biggest question right now is if they're running those. Doesn't seem like it, because I feel like that might have been the opportunity to go for it if they did have it. All right, see an Earth Dragon Fire Block, sure. All right, and then Tiger plus, I guess we'll get a swipe here. I think we have a swipe, yeah. No swipe to use yet. And that should demand at least +1 card and then Flick Knives. Fortunately, this Tiger is not getting buffed, but that's okay. They also have to have a 3-block here. It can't be a 2-block. All right, and then we do get a 3-block out of them, and then the Flick Knives, so pretty good. All right, we have Rabble, Brand with Cindra Claw revealed on top. They have 1 card in hand. I don't think we're really at risk of anything here. Yeah, how do we die here? I guess we can die to like the burning. What is it? The thing that flicks like 2 daggers at you. Oh, Blood Runs Deep. That's the card. But they can't play that notably. So I don't think we die to anything here if we would just want to keep our whole hand. Like I'm struggling to imagine what we would actually die to. But I guess we can just block. I don't feel incredibly strong. We can just block what should go and probably be fine here, right? Like I don't think there's a single card in the game they can have at this point that like kills us. I just want to make sure I'm not dying to like random dagger throwing or something. All right, they're just gonna pass, which is fine. Let's go for I guess Harmony. Buff up our 100 wins. All right, hit a levels off top is fine. Then we do 2, 4, 5. Get like a Mauling Key or something. Do we have Mullen Key? We do. I think we have one more. We might have one more. I might actually cut down to one in this matchup. I haven't looked in a bit. So 4/5, one cost should be probably enough. Especially if they're gonna have to block with 2/2 blocks. It's kind of interesting. This is almost like an Aurora Ira deck, it feels like. All right, we see the breaking point block there. I think that's probably going to be game. Cool. Yeah, so that was a pretty good game to start on. Let's do a quick check. So this is like extremely red line. There are no blues in this deck. Huh. I wonder if this is the same list that Brody was running, because it could have been, but like I don't know. No blues seems incredibly suspect to me. Like there are some very good blues in this game. Like if you're never throwing your daggers, I don't know. That feels kind of weird to me. Yeah, but let's see if we can go ahead and get another. All right, playing against Gordon Ramsay. Let's do our Ira board. Let me take a quick look at our Ira board and make sure it looks kind of good. I don't think wax on off is pretty good in Ira. I'm actually kind of considering this flick. What would we want this flick over? Maybe it's better than like a sensor. I could actually see like cutting the sensors entirely. Maybe just bringing like breed or something. That seems pretty reasonable. Let's try it like this. I'm still working on a lot of these matchup configurations. I think oftentimes they're like 1 or 2 cards off. Just because I kind of like go over them and I feel like I miss cards. I feel like Flick Flack is pretty decent in Ira though. Okay, got a pretty good starting hand. Opponent is on quick dodge flexors. Sure. Double Katachi makes sense. 61 cards. All right, let's see what their opener is. All right, starting off with the Humble Kadachi. Sure. We'll take the first Kadachi here. I think that's fine. Just want to save as much of our hand to block as possible if we can. Probably we'll use the That All You Got on the second link. Although I do want to filter. Maybe like holding on to That All You Got's like actually fine though. Like maybe we can actually just block with 100 wins here. All right. And opponent will finish with a CNC. Sure. So a little bit like, I don't know if this is necessarily a punish. Like I'm kind of actually fine with holding on to the All You Got here. But I'm kind of glad we got max filtering here. The awkward thing about that All You Got is we block on that Kadachi. Like they can opt to just like close the chain and that kind of ruin our day there. All right. Definitely a little bit of awkward hand. How do we want to pilot this? So we can mono transcend the Sacred Art, pitch that All You Got. We have a resource, we can get Mullen Key. Is that the best we can do? And then Arsenal Flick. I guess it's better than nothing, right? Might as well. I guess there's also maybe merit to like double transcending here, but that seems really awkward because we'd basically be holding on to the other chi unless we want to just pop Zen State, which seems probably wrong. I think this sets us up the best. Like we get to send 8 damage, we get to develop out the chi in the deck, and then we also get Flick and Arsenal. Seems pretty solid to me. Sure, we'll go ahead and the Mulling here. All right, opponent also has a Flick, but a little bit inefficient here because they aren't getting the second half of it, which I'm pretty happy with. All right, nice little double transcend hand. Very happy about that. We also have Flick Flack plus Breed Anger if we want to cover up an annoying breakpoint, which is pretty good. All right, opponent is a This Round's on Me gamer. I feel like I've gotten asked about This Round's on Me into Zen. And my opinion is that it's bad. But people run it anyways, so I guess. What do I know? We'll say no blocks on the dagger though. So now that they've played This Round's on Me, we're more incentivized to block here. But like we still can send like a pretty threatening turn even through This Round's on Me. Yeah, I'm not like a fan of this card. Like also like the way to use this card, I feel like for me is to use it as like a chain ender as opposed to like a chain starter. Like you basically want to like use it to like get an arsenal and then like force your opponent to play through the entire hand. So I think here I'm just going to use Flick on this. Just soak up as much damage as possible. Deny the mask momentum trigger. Alright, so they're gonna go for a throw dagger here. Do I mind that? Not really, but we'll still just flick this anyways. I just want to make sure I'm like playing around CNC here mostly. We don't have to worry about going up an arsenal because they're not an assassin, obviously. And I guess there's also like maybe something to talk about is there's also like I feel like a little bit of anti synergy between like this rounds on me and the blood splatter vest. Like I feel like if you're using blood splatter vest counters on the turn that you this rounds on me, like why are you trying to like push damage through giving me more card? Like I don't know. I feel like there's something kind of wrong with that maybe. All right, opponent will send in a pickup point, so we do have to block this to deny the mass trigger, which would unfortunately eat up our flick flack, but maybe it's okay. So let's go ahead and just block with like Breed Anger here. Opponent can still flick this if they want to, but then they're off a dagger, which I'm kind of okay with. Like they don't have infinite ways, I think, to recur daggers. All right, they're going to flick the other Kodachi. Again, we're still incentivized to like just try to block this out as much as possible. Worst case scenario here, if they like send in something that's like super threatening, so we don't even really care about like they get to draw a card, which is obviously the most awkward part. But like we kind of don't really care. Like, if anything, I maybe just want to send CNC at them and then like Arsenal Rising Sun or something. Could also just like block this, double transcend, do something. I don't know. I feel like there are a couple choices here. I feel like I guess the question is like how good is giving them a card? It's like pretty good. I feel like maybe just doing something like this is like acceptable. Like again, blocking out during a that this rounds on me turn seems pretty good to me. All right, so resolutions. I do think we want to maybe Rising Sun Grain this. So maybe we can just like force 2 turns as end state. So Tiger Swipe is kind of awkward, so I guess this is better than that. If they do want to like keep their entire, so if they don't keep their hand here, it's fine, right? If they do want to keep their hand here, then they are going to get Zen stated. But if they like block, if they double block on this, I'm like kind of incentivized to just keep the chi here. They have 2 blues in hand. Do I want to Zen state this? Maybe not, honestly. Maybe just holding on to chi is like fine. It's a little bit greedy, but IPing chi is like kind of okay. Like we aren't forced to make a Zen state there. Like having a chi in your hand is not like a terrible thing to do, right? All right, coming with Kodachi for 1. That is a-okay. They've notably used up 2/3 of their blood splatter vest, which I'm pretty happy about. And if this is their hands, like I'm very glad I didn't try to go for a Zen state on this. So what's our play next turn? We probably want to. What do we want to do? We like play out the harmony and try to YOLO for something. I don't think that's wrong. But we could also just block with it and like probably get as much value, if not more. So maybe our hand is just like Kakara. We could also just like Arsenal Wind Chakra. We still have a couple of Transcends left, so maybe we just do like Tiger, 100 Winds, Winds of Eternity, and then Arsenal Wind Chakra. That seems fine. All right, we'll go ahead and do it. I do think there's like some merit to like going up an Arsenal here. They've seen 1 CNC, but they could definitely find another. Let's go ahead and get our 100 Winds. And then we'll start with the tiger. Just play our hand efficiently, I think is reasonable. It's like a 2-card 9, basically, right? And we get Wind Chakra in Arsenal, which is kind of whatever, but better than nothing. So I think we've seen Rising Sun and Grain gone. We also saw Sacred Art gone. So Wind Chakra, I think, has a couple target, like drop, I think doesn't work with it, but we still have, I think, 4 or 5 other Transcend cards that work with it. So it's definitely not bad. All right, we'll go ahead and send the winds in. Going in for a nice solid 5. On hit never matters, but maybe it'll matter this game. Who knows? All right, we were seeing Shelter as kind of an interesting include. Okay, not bad. I don't like Shelter and Zen, by the way. I've been trying it out. I feel like they're just better cards to run. Right, coming in with Kodachi. Could go for a block with that all you got, but that kind of opens this up to getting CNC'd pretty hard. I guess we get CNC'd pretty hard regardless. So maybe it's fine if we like block this. Maybe it is actually fine to just use it on this. Sure, we'll go ahead and go for it. Definitely feels a little bit suspect, especially potentially facing down a CNC. All right, but if it's just Dishonor, like, I don't think I care. I do think we maybe just want to like pop Traverse here. I'm kind of down with that. We can definitely, like, we're gonna get a 6-card hand functionally, and then we're drawing a random card off the top, which could kind of help us out. All right, Tiger Eye does not help us out, but that's okay. So we might honestly just want to try to go for the Arsenal on Tiger Eye, and then maybe just hard cast the Wind Chakra. It's definitely a little awkward here. Yeah, maybe this is like a little bit overzealous, but we'll still do it anyways. So let's go ahead and get Chase here, I think. So I think the plan is to do Tiger, Chase, Tiger, Breed, Arsenal, Tiger Eye Reflex, which is kind of weak, but I think it's like somewhat reasonable. Opponent's deck seems to be pretty react heavy from what I've seen. We've seen Flick, we've seen Shelter, we've seen Fate. I'm wondering if they're also just running sinks at this point. Like, I kind of wouldn't be surprised. I also do want to mention that this is kind of what I meant by like Zen. I think is a little bit over tech for right now. Amnesia is notably like not that good against deck. Like I think what is the best deck right now, which is like Viscerai. But people still play it anyways because like I think Zen does take up at least like 10 to 5 to 10% of the meta or something like that. Maybe more. Maybe it's like 15%. I guess it's like pretty, I don't know what else like Amnesia is even good into, right? I guess maybe you lose like what else does this like even affect? I'm struggling to think. Like maybe this targets I have no idea. I think this is literally only for Zen right now, isn't it? I mean Katsu obviously, but like I don't know of a single other like Viscerai doesn't really get hurt by it, I feel like. Aurora doesn't get really hurt by it. Who else? I have no idea. Like maybe does this even? I don't even think this really does anything against fealty tokens, right? Because fealty tokens, as long as you play a draconic card, they won't go away even if they lose their name, right? So I'm like 95% sure this is like only for Zen right now. So we basically got like 2 pretty extreme tech cards here. Not to say that our opponent's like deck is bad or anything. I just think that like Zen does eat a disproportionate amount of hate. All right, go ahead and get our Tiger Eye Reflex in Arsenal. We get a Passover, which is quite nice against. Where did that yellow pummel come from? Okay, so we do have a rebuy on the needle. We could go ahead and banish it. But we could also just use this to transcend, so maybe it's better. Like, maybe it's a little bit greedy to just go for the needle banish. Because they can still get the buff on the other needle if they buy it back. So it's, like, not even that amazing. I kind of want them to, like, flick a dagger at me as opposed to, like, try to, like, just go for it in response. Because they still get the buff on it. It's not even, like, that good. Alright, we have another Kodachi coming in. I want to see if I can, like, maybe bait them into trying to continue the chain here by blocking with the Tiger Eye Reflex. Maybe they flick one, and then they have a dagger at the end of their turn in the yard. Right, it seems like they're being a little bit prudent here, though. Right, and I think that it's better for us to not just go for the like, obviously, them losing Kodachi is very, very strong for us, but I think we get to develop out a chase here, if I'm not mistaken, so I think that's also quite good for us. Let's go ahead and just rip something off the top with Harmony, though. All right, we rip a levels, which is not ideal, but that is fine. Let's go ahead and just pass over. Target the yellow pummel as a sign of disrespect, and then we'll just go grab our chase. For what it's worth, I think we were also probably fine to go off an arsenal here, maybe. We're kind of, I feel like, overdue for a pummel. Or, sorry, we're overdue for a CNC, I think. Basically, like 2/3 through the deck and presumably 3 CNCs in the deck. Alright, but we're sending some good damage here. We still have our good equipment up. Got at least 3 value out of our Harmony, which is better than nothing. Opponent definitely has an opportunity to, I think, flexers here if they want to. But we can actually, like, arsenal the 100 wins if they try to go for that. Alright, seems like they're going to hold off on that. Yeah, yellow pummel is pretty spicy. I don't fully understand the logic for the yellow one over the red. Maybe they're also running the red. Who knows? Right, and we get them pretty low here. Kind of almost want to Zen State this turn. It's kind of tempting. Especially if they want to try to, like, push through a mass trigger. But maybe there's not really a need. Let's see what they do first. Right, they're going to go for a throw dagger. So the funny thing is we can actually Zen State this in response if we want to deny the card draw. Which is kind of interesting. Is that worth it? We do just get 2 turns of Zen State. And we deny a card draw. It's definitely tempting. Part of me wants to go for it and just see how, because I actually didn't really, I'm reading this card now and I kind of understand the clause of it now. So if damage is dealt this way, the dagger is hit and you draw and you draw a card. So let's go ahead and just activate Kasaya here. So they won't get to draw a card off this, which I think is pretty sweet for us. And then we just get to, like, potentially block out with, like, the Wax Off and the Harmony Hunt and then Arsenal the Path. It's like a pretty good spot to be in. It does, like, sacrifice a lot of tempo here, notably, but, like, denying a card draw and, like, basically stuffing that trigger seems, like, pretty good. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Coming in for Kodachi for 2. I guess there's no reason to block this now. We'll just send our hand. We also have just another Chase the Tail available to us, which is also quite nice. Notably, we aren't getting Kasaya resource, so maybe it's actually not good to go for Chase the Tail here. Maybe it's better to just go for, like, Kakara. We also didn't have to show them the Pathwell Travel there, notably. I think our plan is to maybe just try to Arsenal Tiger here. Because if it gets blown up with CNC, like, who cares, right? It's kind of a neat trick, though. I've never actually done that before. Like, I read the card to see if it worked that way, and I was surprised that it actually did. That it has to deal the damage for it to go through, which I guess makes Zen State even more busted, right? Oh, Zen State, just continuously finding ways to break the game. All right, but it's gonna go for flexors here. I mean, it's probably a pretty decent opportunity to do so, because they can get at least. Oh, well, maybe not with pitching into race face. I kind of expected them to pitch a blue there, but maybe their hand's awkward. Weird thing, I've also been seeing a lot more erase face played into me, which I think is good into other decks, but like I still don't fully understand why this is played into like Zen, for instance. All right, let's go ahead and get our swipe here. They will have a pretty good opportunity to flexors here, but again, they don't have a blue, so definitely seems a bit awkward. We'll just go ahead and send in the swipe Arsenal Tiger, and then they still have the Zen State to fight through for this turn. All right, Shelter coming in as well. Lots of reacts in this deck. Curious to see if they're also on sinks. I feel like if they're not on sinks, that's strange. Like Fate, oh, okay, they are on sinks. We have seen sinks. So they're on sinks, Fates, Flicks, and Shelters. That is a lot of reacts, friend. Okay, sure. So no damage for them, Kadachi, and then they'll come at us with an erase face for 7. That is fine. I guess we can just go ahead and block with Bouncing Key, just soak up a little bit of damage, but there's not really like a super compelling reason to. It's maybe just because it's like we're already getting a Shuko buff on this turn, so there's not really a huge reason to like try to hold on to that Bouncing Key to push. Like it only comes in for +2 since we're not getting like a Shuko trigger out of it, so blocking 3 with it is more numbers efficient. All right, let's get our Chase the Tail. Just send it in. And then we can Arsenal this Wax Off, which notably doesn't have the combo with it, but still is just fine at like denying breakpoints. Maybe we can dodge like a CNC with it if we block a dagger. Just seems pretty good. All right, this round's on me, making another guest appearance. All right, that's the third erase face? No, second erase face. They revealed a erase face off of something. Sure. All right, we get a nice little transcend here as well. Pretty good Ira game, although I will say that I don't think their game plan is incredibly strong. Like this rounds on me seem a little bit suspect, especially like it like goes against like what you're trying to do, which is like if you're trying to push disruption, like giving me more cards to block does not do that necessarily. They don't have pummel here, so we're safe against that. I guess we'll just Wax Off plus Sink Below. And then like even though this round's on me, like we're still fine to just like try to push through it here. Do we get E-Strike's pretty good against this rounds on me, honestly, so I think we're just fine keeping the hand. All right, so let's send in the levels, which will come in for 1, which is kind of funny. And then I guess we'll get a swipe since it kind of like matches our hand the best. Sure. Do Drago. But again, our opponent's looking pretty cooked here. Like even though all of our attacks are coming in for 1, it doesn't matter, right? Because they're at 2, right? All right, so that's why the yellow pummel's there for what it's worth. Opponents also seems to be on red pummel. Which I guess makes sense. Can't fault them for that. I also enjoy a good pummel. All right, seems like they have another react here. So this deck is just all reacts, all pummels, all. This is like a Guardian deck. Just Ira the Guardian. Just all 4 blocks and disruption, I guess. Sure. It's not even that bad for us, I feel like. All right, let's go ahead and just. I guess we'll go for buff. We don't need another card. We'll just strip them out of cards and then eventually kill them. Okay, we see the other two amnesia. I feel like amnesia is like maybe overkill, especially with Viscerai running around, but maybe it does something in Viscerai that like I don't know. I guess maybe it like turns off swarming glue. Does it turn off swarming glue veil? Maybe it does. Probably doesn't, right? Who knows? Anyways, we'll go ahead and swing it with Kara. All right, see a blue up sticks. That's at least seems like a normal Ira card. Let's get Hunterwoods. Seems good. We do 3-1, 3-1-6. Should be good enough, or at least most of the way there. All right, so I would like another 2 cards. Thank you. All right, and then we're just drawing back into our chi, so very, very good start. Let's go ahead. Just pitch this. Get a 1 cost here if we have one left. We're almost at cards for what it's worth. Maybe they're on a fatigue plan. Who knows? We'll get a pouncing key again. So it demands block on this. We need a 4 block on this, and then we need a 3 block on this, which might not kill them. All right, it seems like they have Throw Dagger, Winds of Eternity, Weakest Link, and Pummel. Maybe they just weren't able to line up the pummels this game. They are on a lot of reacts. Holy crap. So we're on a full set of flicks, a full set of sinks, a full set of fates, and then a full set of shelters. That's kind of like an interesting strat, honestly. There's a lot of like 0-for-4s running around, so maybe it's like kind of reasonable. But definitely a lot more reacts than I feel like I'm used to. The This rounds on me were also like very, very bad this game. But you know, hopefully our opponent kind of maybe realized that. Like, I feel like giving us cards to block their disruption is just like never a good recipe. Like Zen's actually like very good into this rounds of me, which is why I'm not impressed with this card in general. All right, so I think that's gonna wrap it up for today. It's a little bit late at night, so my gameplay's starting to get a little bit sloppy, but I think we had some good games today. If you have any thoughts on Zen or like cards you want to see me try, let me know. I think there's one card that in particular is kind of interesting to me that I might try out for next episode, but that card seems a little bit suspect. So stay tuned for the next time to find out what that card is. If you have any suggestions for new cards you want me to test out, feel free to drop them in the comments. All right, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.